Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonz and joining me tonight is RW.
Hello.
And Punts.
How are you guys?
I'm good, thanks. Now we're coming off a rather dour 31-point victory over Melbourne that had a few interesting talking points. Punts, did you want to get us away on the match?
Yeah, it was a dull game. As viewing, it wasn't the greatest. There was a lot of turnovers from both sides and a lot of awes going on in the crowd. But I think Dan Hanbury led the way last night with 34 possessions. I think he had 18 contested. He was definitely back to his best. He was running both ways, which was good to see. And Kieran Jack also looked to get the ball a little bit more, even though no doubt his ribs are an issue at the moment. They've saw that today on one of the footy shows that they were showing him with his ribs all straight, so it's definitely an issue. I also thought the backline did well last night, considering I know they only had 37 entries, Melbourne, but I thought that Grundy and Tej done a good job on Frawley indoors when they were both at times. I thought Harry Cunningham for us was also good. I know he only had limited possessions, 12 to 13 possession I think he had, but he was going at 90% kicking efficiency, and he got an important goal there as well. Who else? I saw Shaw.
He was
30,
not
Shaw
great.
was good,
Yeah, I thought Shaw was probably his best game for the year. Even though he did have 5 clangers, he kept working hard, and his run off the halfback was pretty good last night with 34 possessions off the halfback flank. It's that's a pretty good game in my eyes.
In regards to Shaw, actually, having a look at the statistics and being at the game last night, it didn't seem like he had 34 possessions. Especially all 85% disposal efficiency. Just looking at it now, it's a fair bit surprising because I honestly thought it was not one of his greater games this season.
I was quite surprised when I saw the numbers because I watched on TV and I got the same impression. It didn't seem he had that much of the ball. I mean, the run was really good, but I think, now that I think back on it, I think he did have a really good game.
That one goal he gave away was a bit annoying. How he turned it over on the halfback flank. That was shocking. But oh well.
One player I did want to actually get your opinion on RW was Lewis Roberts-Thompson. Last night, only 4 disposals. He wasn't really effective and doesn't seem to be providing that much of a contest anymore, which is a little bit disappointing. Do you see a position for him in our lineup in the future?
I'm not sure. I mean, he's been really quiet for a few weeks now. I think it's almost like he's almost the similar stage to O'Keefe, where he can still play a role if we need him, but he might get overtaken when guys come back, like say if Reed's fit or Tippett's fit. He might get squeezed out. But I don't. I'm
just not looking great.
Defence. I guess there was a topic that came up on the boards a while ago, was whether he's better off in defence or a forward. I mean, I always thought his best position was as a backman, but just I'm not sure whether there's a spot for him there at the moment. And he's been playing forward. I think he's been playing a bit more forward because we had to, in a way, because players have been injured. But
once Reed and Tippett get back, and hopefully Franklin can never get
I think speed's probably the issue. I think maybe it's a bit slower, like a bit like O'Keefe in a way. Like they're still, like he and O'Keefe are still such great competitors, but they're just not as quick as they used to be. I think that's really
Well, looking forward, I almost believe that the best position for LRT would be at third man in defence, but Laidler's performing the role so well at the moment, it isn't really giving an opening for him, and personally I think he should be dropped.
Punts, you go? Yeah.
I just think with LRT the third tour, I think it's funny. I think that Laidler and Rampe can play small and tall, where LRT would have to take the bigger defender, and when the ball comes to ground, as we know, he's not quick anymore at ground level. So maybe the back line will be too slow with, say, Grundy, Teddy Richards, and LRT all up there. When the ball hits the deck, at least with Laidler and Rampe, they're Laidler's reasonably quick, not flying quick, but he still be able to play on the medium-sized forwards as well, where LRT would have to take a monster, and that's about it. So maybe that's the reason for. Because I think if they were going to play him as a backman, it's round 6 now. They would have had that in mind. This would have happened by now, I would have thought.
In regards to Rampe, actually, I wanted to really talk to you about that. You were pretty critical about him in his preseason, but he seems to have really ramped it up, if you want a bad pun to say, in the regular season. It's been superb.
Yeah.
Last night again, he was amazing.
Yeah, as I said, in the pre-season he was copping a bit from myself, and I seen him at training a few times as well, and he was copping it off the players as well, especially McVeigh and his kicking. But if his kicking can just straighten up a little bit more, as it has done this year, he's going to become a real asset to the team with his run and carry off half back. He's gotten a hell of a lot more confident this year as well. So last year he was his number one priority would have been defending, and Everett sort of wasn't that sort of defender that Lather is. So maybe with Lather in the side, it's let Rampe get off the leash that little bit, because he hasn't had to worry about defending so much like last year. With I wouldn't say Everett was more of a attacking player rather than a defender. So I think Lather's let Rampe off the chain a little bit, and maybe Rampe's confidence has gone up also. So I think no, he's not going anywhere. He'll be staying in the side.
Now, RW, I wanted to... Punts already brought up Hanbury's performance before, but I honestly think that's Hanbury's best performance nearly in the last 12 months since the midway point of last year. We're looking at 34 disposals, 18 contested, and 13 clearances, which is really surprising because when he was at his best last year, he was more of an outside player, getting a lot of 1-2 disposals. RW, do you believe one of the main reasons he could have had a slow start to the year was a change in role, and he's just been acclimatising to it?
Yeah, I think so. I think a few people said he was getting back to close to his best last week as well. So he started slowly. I mean, that's a possibility. He was definitely really good last night. The running and he was doing, and the clearances work as well. I think he's definitely bounced back big time. I think we need him. He's almost one of the barometers of the midfield in a way. I know in the last couple of years, he's almost when he's been up and running, the Swans have been up and running, and I think it was good to see him back. Jack, because the problem we had at the end of last year was Kennedy was not getting a lot of help, and now that Hanbury's back in form, it's a really good sign. So.
It's interesting, the midfield. It looks like almost Jack and Hanbury have swapped positions, as in Jack's a lot on the outside, playing on the wings a lot more now, and Hanbury's gone into the middle. Whether that be that Jack's, with his injury, they don't want him getting crunched in the middle as much. He can sort of protect it more, out being a bit outside at the moment. But it looks like they've sort of swapped roles, both of them. As you said, I thought Hanbury's, at his best. I think it's that outside run that he carries with. But if he's getting it in, 18 contested possessions, it's also another asset to his game.
Yeah. I thought Jack's leadership was really good, that he went forward and actually saw that it was a fairly low-scoring game, and the fact that he was able to get 2 goals in when goals were so hard to come by. I think it was just that was where he was needed, and he knew he was able to warm up at the right time, and I think that just shows how important he is as a leader.
Now, speaking about leaders, it's taken nearly 9 minutes of this podcast for him to come up, but how bloody good was it to see Adam Goods come back onto the ground last night? How fantastic. He was involved from 5 disposals, he was involved in 5 scoring chains, and it seems that his disposal efficiency has actually gone up since his time off.
No, pretty small sample size with only 5 disposals, but yeah, that was great to see him out there. I think just the raw, even though it didn't look like there were that many at the MCG last night, but there was just the raw when he came back on. I think the team lifted, even though he didn't do a lot. I mean, five touches. I mean, don't want to read too much into 5 touches. I think just the team.
But out of those 5 touches, out of those 5 touches, 3 of them were goal assists, and one of them was a pass to assists, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that him running into the open goal and that sidewards almost spear pass to McGlynn was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a bit of Stevie Johnson look away that that pass he did. I watched it on the replay today, the actual game, and he was a bit of Stevie Johnson. So he's definitely hasn't lost anything. But I look at last night, I noticed that he was a couple of contested situations where he was still a little bit ginger and didn't really want to, But I think that'll obviously being first game back in 10 months, you know what I mean? He's probably a little bit cautious at the time, but he looked a pretty good sub to me last night.
Yeah.
I do actually want to ask you guys, do you believe he'll be the sub next week? Or do you reckon he'll start on the ground? Longmire appears to have talked today saying, depending on how he pulls up, he'll be in the starting 21, but would you give him another week of sub?
I'd play him.
Yeah, I'd play him too.
Yeah. Taking nothing away from Brisbane, but I think it's a good chance to play him, to get him, a little bit more game time prior to the Hawthorn game, where I think he obviously will play in the Hawthorn game. Everything going well, and I think we need to get some game time into him this week, whether that be till halfway through the third quarter or just half a game. Yeah, I think he should play this week.
Yeah,
in 21.
He's also because he's a playmaker. He sort of creates opportunities as he did last night, and even though he's in the twilight of his career, obviously, I think we're still given the teams. I mean, like the scoring. I mean, we're still. Like, given that we don't have that many playmakers, like apart from Franklin, of course, but sometimes just having those guys that can actually make things happen. I think even if he's near the end of his career, I think I think we definitely need to hope he starts. But yeah.
Now, RW, actually, you brought up a fairly important point in regards to Lance Franklin. John Longmire has come out and said that Lance Franklin has actually been battling a knee injury since round 3, which is a bit surprising, and that's been stopping him from training. And that most likely at some point during the season he's going to have a bit of time out to get it right. Do you believe we should rest him this week against Brisbane and make sure he is fine for the Hawthorn match?
I'll probably say if he's right, he should play, because I think you can't hide them. You can't hide players, even if there's a slight injury cloud. I think it just depends on how he gets through. It depends on how he gets through the week, I guess. But if he gets through okay, you probably. You may as well just play him, because I think we're not sure about Reid, and Tippett's still a couple of weeks away, so I'd still say play him. Yeah.
I'd feel very wary. I still think we might actually play Tippett this week. It was only one cracked rib, and they said he could come back for the Brisbane game. Now, if we are going to try and give Tippett some game time before the Hawthorn match, I wouldn't want to go into a match of AFL football with Franklin, Goods, Tippett, and possibly Reid, all under injury clouds, along with Kieran Jack's ribs. If we suffer another injury on the field and we need to do an early sub out, that is a recipe for disaster.
That changes things. Maybe I'd almost, if that's the case, I might even leave. I might even give Tippett another week then, because
I'd rather Tippett personally get some game time before the Hawthorn match.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's
if he gets that game time at risk of Franklin getting a week off to rest that knee injury, I'm gonna have no complaints. I think that'd be ideal, nearly.
Well, Reid flew with the team down to Melbourne, so I presume he was touch and go. So I guess he'd only have to get through training this week, and he'll probably walk in, I'd presume, to the team. So if Franklin is still sore, I think they should rest him up this week. And if Reid's ready to go, well, you just swap him straight over for that. As for Tippett, as you said, if he's ready this week and gets through training, he plays. He has to play. To get some game time into him before the Hawthorn match, even though, as I said, he shouldn't take Brisbane lightly at all. But I think he's got to get in the team, so he's got to play.
Okay, now in regards to this week's ins and outs, we've got a interesting matchup against Brisbane. They haven't been in the greatest of form this year so far. They've had... Everyone knows about their injury list. It's been astronomical and pretty appalling, but they managed to return to form and have a pretty gutsy win over St Kilda on the weekend. RW, how do you see the match playing out?
Yeah, I think it's probably... I guess you don't want to take your opposition lightly after the GWS game. I think we'll never make that mistake again, but I sort of feel that similar. I think we would treat it similar to this game. I think just making sure we get the win. I mean, they're not that easy to beat up there. I mean, we do have a good record up in Queensland, but they can be a bit tricky. They can cause a surprise up there. I mean, they beat Geelong there last year, if you remember.
Ash McGrath.
Yeah, the Ash McGrath goal. So they do have a very young team. I don't know a lot of. Actually, I have to admit, I don't know a lot about some of their players because they've turned over their list quite a bit. I think it would be probably similar to last night, maybe a 5 or 6. I'd be happy with like a 5-goal win. The other thing is we'd probably need to think about Tom Mitchell and whether he'll come back in because
he was best on ground on the weekend in the reserves.
So maybe he comes in for someone like Lloyd or something like that.
I wouldn't want to drop Lloyd after the weekend.
Yeah.
I thought he was very good on the other night. Whilst he got 14 possessions from 80% time on ground at a 92% efficiency rate. Made a couple of tackles as well, and I think he doesn't look out of place at AFL level. Honestly, this week's ins and outs are going to be interesting. I think we're going to rest Franklin. That's nearly a certainty. I can't see us playing Franklin if he can't get through training.
I think you've changed. I think you've convinced me, Bonz. I think I'm going to say I think we should rest him too.
I don't think Goods will be sub, but I think he will be subbed out. I think we may move Cunningham back to sub as much as that's going to aggravate a lot of Swans fans because Cunningham has been a bit of a shining light this year. He didn't find a heap of the ball on the weekend, and whilst he's got great disposal coming outside 50 and everything, he'll be very good coming on as a sub player. Personally, I see the ins and outs being, well, Franklin out. I think Reed's going to come in. LRT's going to come out. I think we'll bring in Tippett. As for that final out, is going to be interesting. I can't see who Tom Mitchell is going to come in for, and I think he may actually have to spend another week in the reserves.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Tommy will have to spend another week in the reserves. I just can't see him coming in at the moment. It's pretty hard with the position he plays as well. I think
we wouldn't want to make
Tommy
three
Mitchell
changes.
would have to be a Bird sort of player, wouldn't he? I just can't see him coming in for any.
Bird was really good on the weekend.
Yeah, so I just can't see him coming in for a speedy sort of player. We know that Tommy lacks leg speed, and he's not a small forward, so they're going to play him down in the forward line. It's almost ridiculous. So
I think
it's interesting. I'm more interested in say if Franklin does play and Reed and Tippett are available. Obviously, surely they're going to take two talls out for two talls to come back in, and does that mean Tippett has the second ruck in his first game back, or what are they going to do? How are they going to work it? If Reed and Tippett are available and Franklin plays, is Derrick's and LRT going to get dropped for them too, or is Derrick's going to stay into second ruck and they're going to drop say LRT and say Jake Lloyd and bring in two talls, and there's going to be three talls sitting on the bench. You know what I mean? It's going to be a very tall side if you're going to make Harry Cunningham sub and play Reed, Tippett, Franklin, a resting ruck, and Goods all on the forward line. Jesus.
At the same time, with some of the tools that we've got, like we're talking Goods and Franklin and Reed, they're very mobile tools who are very good at ground level.
They are, but I still think we lack a crumbing forward. I watched Hawthorn today, and Palopolo and Bruce and Surioli. We don't have something like that. We don't have a player like that.
We've got Brandon Jack, but he spends half his time in the reserves.
Yeah, and Punts, I know you were really high on Brandon Jack as someone who could play that role, and that's someone I think we need to think about trying to fit him into the team somewhere, because I think he does offer that. Yeah.
There isn't one other player on our list that hits the pack as quick as Brandon Jack does and rove the pack as good as he does. Maybe his brother. Kieran's probably the only one. But besides that, Brandon Jack's perfect, and I think they should try and get him in the side because he could develop into a really good small forward. And just like even Port Adelaide, they have Wingard and your Montfrees and stuff like that. We sort of lack that. We're trying to make resting the midfielders resting down forward, and I don't think it's working. Tom Mitchell didn't work as a resting forward. He's too
Parker
slow.
seems
He's not
to
that
work.
sort of player. Yeah, Parker's good. Parker's pretty good, but still you're just not that Palopolo sort of Bruce sort of player that we lack. That I think Brandon Jack could. You get 3 goals out of Brandon Jack a game. Well, that's all you're asking, and he creates things as he did in the Fremantle game. There was a couple of times there where he put on great defensive pressure, which caused turnovers up the ground, and that's all you have to do is just be able to put on defensive pressure and just create opportunities for other goals. And with Tom Mitchell and that resting up forward, they don't put on enough pressure because they can't get to the contest quick enough. You know what I mean? So I don't think the resting mids works, and I think they've sort of sorted that out at the moment. They tried it for the first couple of weeks, and obviously it didn't work with O'Keefe, Mitchell all up in the forward line. I think Brandon Jack would be good because I don't think Jetta and Rowan are small forwards either. They're not. At the moment they're playing. Rowan's the last 2 weeks has played in the back line in the twos. They're playing him off a half-back flank. He actually lined up on Payne on the weekend, which would have had probably 3 or 4 centimetres on him. So by the looks of that, I think they're going to try and develop him into a half-back flanker.
They're actually talking about developing Rowan into a half-back flanker late, just when you're starting to come back from the injury last year.
Yeah, I think they should. They get a heap more of the ball, and I think he'd suit that role, just coming off half-back with his pace.
He's very good under pressure as well.
He's also 190 centimetres, so he's got the height to go, to be able to spoil and go with the taller blokes if he gets a mismatch. Like, he's taller than Rampe and Laidler, or same height as Laidler. Yeah. So, and the ball hits a deck, and not many people are going to catch him. And if somebody gets off, if somebody else gets the ball, he's going to be quick enough to catch him. And
at the same time,
as well.
This might be a bit surprising, and I'm not sure if he's still got the same leap since a broken leg. But at his draft, he had the highest standing vertical leap. So he can play above his height.
Yeah, exactly right, and that's what they must see in him. At being 190 centimetres, like I said, he can play a little bit smaller on a taller bloke if he has to, because he does have that leap. Because if you notice in the NAB Cup this year, there was a couple of times he took a couple of marks at his highest peak, and he's definitely still got the leap. But whether he can get through a full game at the half-back flank, where you might get a few more knocks playing in the back line on his leg, or what are they gonna do? Maybe get that rod out and just set him up for next year. Maybe, as I said.
I think that's what's going to happen with him.
I know there was a thread on the board about the defence and how our defence is going to set up over the next few years, and I think we're going to have to start thinking about who's going to come in for Teddy and Shaw the next couple of years. So I think that's one option for Rowan. The other thing I want to ask is, where do you see Jetta at the moment? If we've got time, but because I know he was one that has been criticised a bit.
He's been very good this year.
He hasn't really recaptured the heights of what he did in 2012, and where does he fit at the moment?
Did you watch Jetta's game last week by any chance?
He was good last week, yeah.
He's been racking up whilst he isn't exactly taking on as many players on the run, he's been racking up a lot of the ball and has been a very solid outside option. That, and coupled with his disposal efficiency, I wouldn't call him one of the warriors in our team right now.
Okay, fair enough.
He's getting a lot of pressure acts as well. Like, even on the weekend, whilst you look at his statistics and he only laid 2 tackles, if you look at, he laid a couple of 1%ers, 3 inside 50s, and he was getting tagged pretty heavily throughout the game. I wouldn't call him a problem at the moment.
Kicking efficiency and using the ball going forward is still an issue, and it has been since mid last year. That really has to change within the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, I think Hawthorn will pull our pants down and win by, absolutely flog us, because it's just. There's guys running around. There might be 18 blokes on that side last night that were running around about 50-60% kicking efficiency. It's not good enough. Like, you're just going to get, and that was Melbourne. Can you imagine turning over the ball that many times in a game against a Hawthorn or a Geelong, someone like that? They'll hurt you every single time, and they'll kick 20 goals on you if you're gonna turn it over. We've got to get that right, and it's been an issue for a long time. I know, our game is evolved around tackling and contested ball and all that sort of stuff, but you've got to be able to use the footy as well. Otherwise, you're just going to get cut up against Hawthorn. They won't let you have the ball back. You know what I mean? We've just got to. It's just too many blokes are running around at 50-60% kicking efficiency, and also going forward. Last night there was still on occasions we kicked it to 3-on-1, or kicked it. I've seen a couple of kicks go into McVeigh and also Ben McLean, and they had two taller blokes, 2 key defenders on them. I don't understand. It's got me buggered, and there's a couple of times where we just plopped it in the middle of almost the middle of everyone. You know what I mean? It's got to get better. Otherwise, Franklin and all that are going to be a waste of space. Like, you know what I mean? It's not going to work. So I think still an issue that we have to get right if we're going to challenge for anyone this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, the sentiment is 100% correct. We do need to work on our disposal inside 450, but at the same time, once we get Tippett back and Reed back and Goods up and flying, along with Franklin, if we can get him fit somehow this year, we're not exactly going to have many loose defenders in the back line.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I'm actually starting to feel a lot more positive about the season. I know that, I think there's still a lot to work on. I actually still feel that the vibe in the group, the vibe I'm getting in the group is good, and things that they're prepared to improve and get better. And I think we will get better. Maybe just I could be totally wrong, of course, but I still feel positive about the season. So, that counts for anything, but
Okay, guys, I'm going to ask you a few match-up questions in regards to the Lions match this weekend. Okay, Punts, if you want to get us underway, who do you believe will take Rockcliffe?
Oh, Rockcliffe. Yeah, depends where he's going to play. What's he going to play, mid or half back?
We'll say hypothetically he'll play for it in midfield. This is where he seems to have played most of his football this year. So
yeah, and he's been playing a little off half back. I'd say they're going to try Ben McGlynn on him again, aren't they? Ben McGlynn's been he was on 5 the other week, and I almost fell over when I turned on the TV and seen he was on 5. But I think they might try and run McGlynn on him for a little bit and see how that goes. Yeah, probably that.
Okay, if McGlynn is running off Rockcliffe, then what happens with Zorko? Because I almost thought that McGlynn would have been the perfect midfielder to match up with him, and Zorko has been played predominantly on a wing or in the midfield this year, not up forward.
I thought Harry Cunningham.
Yeah, that's.
Can Cunningham play a defensive role?
Harry Cunningham will go to Zorko if he's going to play off the wing, and even if he does play half forward, Zorko, I still think Harry will. 2 weeks ago, Harry took Stephen Hill, and Stephen Hill took him forward, and Harry was playing in defence a fair bit that game and did a wonderful job on Stephen Hill that day. So I think if that would be a good matchup, is Cunningham and Zorko. I can't see Cunningham being the sub. He's been playing too well, and I think they want his outside pace. With the game the way it's going now. The last 2 years, everyone's just gone for outside speed. We've seen that in Port Adelaide today. That it's just on the spread. You need quick players on the spread. You can't afford to have any slow outside players on the spread anymore. So Harry just fits that bill. So I don't think Harry will be. I think Harry's almost cemented a spot in the 21 at the moment.
Okay. RW, what are your matchups for Zorko and Rockcliffe?
Yeah, I don't think I'd pretty much agree with what you guys have said. I think Cunningham makes sense on Zorko. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd agree. Yeah.
Okay. Personally, I think it'll be a little bit different. I think we'll play Bird on Rockcliffe. Rockcliffe doesn't exactly rely a heap on speed. It's more on his smarts, and I think Bird can go with him. And I'm very worried about Zorko this weekend, so I really hope McGlynn goes to him. But we'll see what exactly happens with do you guys have any final predictions for the Brisbane match?
Probably. I think we'll win. I think I gave a tip before. I'd say I'd be happy just to win by 5 goals. Yeah, that's yeah.
I just at the moment I'd just take the win. We're fluctuating in form, something shocking at the moment. 1 week we're up and about, the next week we're turning the ball over, or we've been doing it all season. We're just fluctuating the form at the moment. As you guys said, Brisbane can be dangerous if they get on a bit of a roll up at the Gabba. I'm just hoping for a win and no injuries, to be honest with you, and just a little bit of improvement on form and kicking and entries going into the forward line against taking in a little bit of confidence against Hawthorn. So that's all I'm hoping for.
Okay, and I believe we'll win by 27 points with Adam Goods kicking 3 goals. For our sure thing for the week, what is your sure thing, RW?
Sure thing. Let's see. Sure thing is someone will say. I don't want to pick Franklin as my sure thing because because there's been so much talk about it. I'm trying to think of another one. Sure thing. I don't want to say.
Okay, fair enough. Punts, what's your sure thing for the week?
Goods to start and kick 3 goals before half time.
Okay, and your worst nightmare?
Oh, I don't want to talk about it.
Worst
Injuries. No injuries.
Okay, my sure thing for the weekend will be Bird to run with Rockcliffe. I don't believe it'll be McGlynn. And my worst nightmare is for us to play Franklin, Tippett, Reed and Goods, and for 1 or 2 injuries resembling a car crash. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. Just going to give a late shout out to Von, Swans Rule and SM for all ditching me out tonight. Thank you, Punts and RW, for coming on, and good night.